First, an IRS building, then the Pentagon. New details tonight on what some call the new homegrown terror. Hello, everyone. I'm Don Lemon at the CNN World Headquarters in Atlanta. It is a chilling reminder that we live in a dangerous world, and it could have been a whole lot worse. Today, we're learning more about the man police say opened fire Thursday at the subway entrance to the Pentagon. One thing is certain. John Patrick Beatty was a troubled man. He died in that assault, and 2 Pentagon police officers are recovering from their wounds. Beatty had battled mental illness for years, committed to institutions for treatment at least 3 times. He had previous brushes with police, and while his problems were known to many, few would have predicted he might attack America's military. Beatty frequently posted disturbing internet rants, warning about government power and other perceived threats. Betty's parents have released a statement through their county sheriff calling the incident a tragedy.
We may never know why he made this terrible decision. One thing is certain, though. His actions were caused by an illness and not a defective character.
You know, the Pentagon attack joins a growing list of recent assaults and foiled plots here at home on American soil. Some fall under the category of domestic terrorism. Others appear to be isolated plans of one person acting alone. So let's talk about it now with security consultant Jeffrey Beatty. He is a former CIA officer, and he has helped train Pentagon police officers. Can we call this homegrown terror, sir?
Well, hi, Don. Thank you for having us with you. It's too early to tell. I think, Don, we have to see what are some of the writings that this individual may have left behind. And Don, this is really a continuum. And it goes everywhere from people who conduct violence at home to workplace violence to perhaps then violence against the government to terrorism. We don't know yet where this is going to fall out on that continuum. But I can tell you, at TSSI, when we worked with the Pentagon police as long ago as a dozen years, they have been preparing for just such a scenario. And sadly, as you said, it could have been a lot worse, but the security worked here at the Pentagon.
How long have they been preparing for such a scenario? Is this recent?
No, we actually started with them about a dozen years ago, right after our embassies were bombed in Africa, and TSSI delivered our Win Against Terrorism program there, worked with them as they were finalizing the design of the entry points, and they, of course, have continued that on and just done a great job of protecting the people that work at the Pentagon. Some reports show that this individual had as many as 250 rounds of ammunition with him. Had he been able to get into the Pentagon, it could have been very, very bad.
Let's talk about the bigger picture, because we had the IRS, the plane, the guy who flew the plane into the IRS building and then left his sort of manifesto. You have this guy who left his sort of manifesto. So the question is, here's what people are saying. Had this been someone who, you know, came from overseas, Muslim or some other religion, that it would have been deemed as terrorism. Why is this not deemed as terrorism? This seems to be growing in nature when you have 2 such incidents back to back.
Well, generally, terrorism has a political component to it. Go back and look at the American militia movement during the Clinton administration. You know, you had people like Timothy McVeigh. He was not acting alone, but he was acting as part of a militia movement. You had people like Eric Robert Rudolph, the Army of God that he talked about. That was kind of a movement. We see no indication yet of that here, Don, with this individual. Again, it all depends on what bubbles up over the next few days of the investigation to determine whether or not he was totally politically motivated or if this was in fact just what we call death by cop, where he was not ready to commit suicide himself, but he knew that going up against this defenses would result in his death.
All right, and there's no connection to this sort of outrage that we have been seeing over government. Do you see that?
I think there's probably going to show some connection, just like the IRS guy, an individual who was individually frustrated. But I would be surprised if we saw any sort of pulling together, any sort of movement, if you will, that would urge this kind of violence be undertaken by individuals. So I think it's going to turn out to be individual, but very, very frustrated with where they are in their life.
Good information, Mr. Beatty. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don.